Well, while we're stalled, can I ask a question then?
Come right on,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. I have two questions here, and that is, trying to read by the maps, do all supervisors have area outside of Jackson? As county supervisors, I would think it important that we have area outside of the capital city. And my second question concerns a specific District 4 question, and that is specifically, are Clinton, Raymond, and Byram split under all the plans, or only under plans 2, 3, 4, or I'm sorry, yeah, maybe 1, 2, and 3, only under 3 of the plans. And if proposal 4 appears to be just Raymond 1 split out, and I haven't seen proposal 5, which I'd like to see if it's such as eligible to be voted on. But can Mr. Johnson answer those two questions for me, please?
Yes, in terms of the areas of Raymond, Clinton, and all of the plans, as I'm reviewing them now, there is some level of split in all 4 plans that I drew. In proposal 1, both Raymond and Clinton has a split. And proposal 2, both Raymond and Clinton, and it goes out to Spring Ridge, has a split. And in proposal 3, Raymond, in some area in the Spring Ridge area has a split. And in proposal 4, Raymond has a split. And I may also want to assure you that proposal 4 was drafted with the input of the elected officials in District 4. Our goal in this process was to get as much input from the elected officials who are elected from these districts, and I wanted to make sure that the elected officials in District 4 also had input in your absence.
Okay, is Mr. Perry still in the room? And can he answer if his proposal splits those cities in any way?
Come to the podium, Mr. Perry. Phil, can you hear me from here?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. I'm going to go up the mic anyway.
Pete Perry again. Mr. Fisher, we sent you a JPEG via phone text about 30 minutes ago. I don't know if you can read it. In that plan, Raymond, Clinton, nothing splits, nothing moves out. The only thing that changes in District 4 is it takes precincts 91 and 95 out, moves them into 3, and then takes precincts 21, 24, and 26 and moves them into 2. But so Raymond and Clinton stay exactly like they are in your current District 4 right now. It moves 91 and 95 out of that district. Does that answer the question?
Okay. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sure thing.
I think it's important that as much as possible we keep communities together. As much as possible we keep neighborhoods together. I think that's the fairest way to get a viewpoint that is of the whole of the area that we represent. Dividing communities, dividing cities, such as Clinton, or Raymond, in this case, or Byram, in fact, splits the community, and I don't know time necessary to look at the fourth and the fifth proposals, particularly the fifth proposal, since no one there has a map of that one, and that way we can make a decision based on what is the best interest of the citizens and where they live, versus just the idea of moving population or flopping population around to provide more favorable voting districts.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Cox.
First off, one of the statements I believe was made by Supervisor Graham was the fact that if a precinct was split, they would still be voting in the same location. If that were the case, it would be a disaster. I think Derek made the statement that it would have to be renamed, it would have to have its own precinct to have its own voting location. We do not need to get into the practice of elections with split precincts for county elections and district elections. For instance, if you were to keep Raymond 1 as in one voting location, you'd have people coming from one district to another district to vote, which my concern is in all these changes that are being made, if they are going to be made, we have to stop and think about the voter and the poll workers that are going to be conducting the elections. We need to keep it as simplified as possible so as not to create mass confusion. It's already very difficult for the voters to understand when they go and vote in legislative races within the same precinct. It's confusing to them. It's confusing with the city of Clinton when we have county precincts and municipal precincts where boundaries don't jive. So I just ask you to please consider the voters out there, whether they be white voters, black voters. It doesn't make any difference. They're all going to go to the polls, and we need to have it as less confusing as we possibly can. So I beg you not to split precincts, and I don't think we need to make these major changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. What we do, I think we've heard from everyone. I think Mr. Smith. Oh, yes. Oh, you go ahead. Come down.
I asked one question.
Good.
My name is Jimmy Morden. I'm a Justice Court Judge from District 4. And for anyone in the room who knows me, it is not my intention to instigate. I'm a person who tries to not start mess. Okay? But I have a question that I need to ask, and I want to say, Derek, thank you for including the other elected officials in the meeting Saturday and Sunday. I found you to be easy to work with, and I have a question about a definition that people are asking me that I'm having a hard time defining the word. There's a lot of talk about Department of Justice, there's a lot of talk about different terms, but people in the county do not understand the term minority. And again, you'd think it's a fairly simple answer, but my question, not to cut you, but just to ask you, what is the legal definition, according to the purposes of what we're doing here tonight and forward, of minority? Is it a certain race? Is it a certain number? Is it a certain, would you define minority for the people in the county so that as this process goes forward, they'll understand where they are?
As it relates to the redistricting process in the Justice Department, as a result of the many incidents in the state of Mississippi with poll taxes and racial incidents, the U.S. Senate and Congress did a series of hearings to determine the extent in which racial episode preventing African Americans in the state of Mississippi and preventing them from exercising their constitutional right to vote. As a result of those hearings, Mississippi was one of several jurisdictions, primarily in the former Confederate South, that the U.S. Congress and Senate found that the racial discrimination in the practices of voting was to such an extent that the federal government had to step in and create oversight in the election process. And in enacting the 1965 Voting Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act has two primary sections. Section 2 deals generally with vote dilution. Section 5 is where the Justice Department was given authority for those jurisdictions that have been proven over a series of incidents and over a period of many years to intentionally and maliciously disenfranchise African American voters in Mississippi. And the term minority voters grew out of that because as they began to investigate other jurisdictions across the country, they found that in San Francisco, Asian American voters had been systematically disenfranchised. In parts of Florida, particularly South Florida, Latino were being disenfranchised. In Texas, Latinos were being disenfranchised. So it grew out of the investigation done by the United States Senate and Congress to determine the extent of the malicious and continuing disenfranchisement of African Americans. As a result of that, many jurisdictions across the South have been able to elect individuals who fall under their protected status. Because they now are elected, they do not lose the title of minority, and because they are perhaps a numerical majority in a particular jurisdiction, the Justice Department looked comprehensively of the class of individuals who have been discriminated against. In 2006, the United States Senate, both of our senators voted for the extension of the Voting Rights Act because there was ample evidence to show that even in Mississippi today, there continues to be effort to disenfranchise African American voters in this state. Both Senator Lott and Cochran voted for that extension. That extension would last for 25 years. And as a result of that, any changes in policies or practices in the state of Mississippi must be submitted to the Justice Department for pre-clearance before it can be implemented.
Just a quick follow-up. It has nothing to do with numerical numbers. It has nothing to do with, it just has to do with that status.
It only involves the class of individuals that was shown to have been maliciously disenfranchised, which is inclusive of African Americans in the covered jurisdictions, but also inclusive of Asian Americans, Latino Americans, and other disenfranchised ethnic groups.
Okay, let me do this. Now that's it.
Excuse me. I know I didn't ask to speak, but may I just have a minute of your time?
Come right on.
My name's Nick Tremonti, or Tremonte, and I'm the mayor of Byron. As public officials, and I'm going to address myself mainly to y'all, but please feel good. As public officials, we walk a real fine line to try to represent our constituents fairly and evenly. And everything we do is a judgment of our character and our integrity. So I'm just going to ask you, and I feel certain that you're going to do this, but I just want to voice my opinion. As a public official, please consider the board's integrity, because the vote that you make on this redistricting is going to demonstrate to everyone in Hinds County exactly how much integrity you have. I have confidence that you're going to do the right thing, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clark.
And I'm back. I missed everything Mr. Perry said.
So that was Mr. Tremonti from Byron.
Oh, Tremonti?
Yes.
Okay.
Byron Mayor.
Good evening. I'm Commissioner Jamel Clark, Commissioner for the 3rd District, Hinds County Election Commission. I'd like to pose this question to the craft or the legislature drawing these lines under the Justice Department rules. And speaking to the public in terms of the general and traditional lines and communities of interest, if an African American in the communities of interest, Clinton, Raymond, Byron, and the election was held today, would the numbers currently as it stands today, would an African American win in those particular interests, communities of interest?
Who he is.
In terms of the drafting of lines, race cannot be the predominant factor in drawing any districting plans. The only factors that I could consider were those that related to the requirement to redraw the plans under one person, one vote, and I took into consideration the input and advice of the Board of Supervisors. Once it is required for redistricting to take place, the Board of Supervisors have the authority and the discretion to draw a plan that they find that will be in the best interest of the citizens of the jurisdiction in which they represent. Race cannot be the primary factor into this, to drawing a redistricting plan. Therefore, I cannot directly answer your question because that was not a factor in drawing these maps.
Okay. What we would do, we've heard from everyone, what we would do is, I don't know whether we need 5 or 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to ask that we recess for maybe 15 minutes at the most, and we'll come back and make a decision.